and many of them tell us they have not actually made up their mind. So this debate, when you think about it tonight, may be the last best chance for the candidates to make their case to South Carolina and Super Tuesday voters.
And CBS News is proud to bring you this debate along with our co-sponsors. They are the Democratic National Committee and the Congressional Black Caucus Institute, a nonpartisan organization committed to educating voters and training political leaders.
And we are partnering tonight also with Twitter, so you at home can participate in this debate. How do you do that? Send us your questions for the candidates using the Twitter hashtag #DemDebate.
Now, here are the rules for the next 2 hours. When you are asked a question, you will have 1 minute and 15 seconds to answer and 45 seconds for follow-ups. So let's begin. Senator Sanders, we haven't had a national unemployment rate this low for this long in 50 years. Here in South Carolina, the unemployment rate is even lower. How will you convince voters that a Democratic socialist can do better than President Trump with the economy?
You can't.
Well, you're right. The economy is doing really great for people like Mr. Bloomberg and other billionaires.
Oh, bullshit.
In the last 3 years, billionaires in this country saw an $850 billion increase in their wealth. But you know what? For the ordinary American, things are not so good. Last year, real wage increases for the average worker were less than 1%. Half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck.
That's their fault.
87 million Americans have no health insurance or are underinsured. 45 million people are struggling with students. For the American people, that's an economy working for the 1%. We're going to create an economy for all, not just wealthy campaign contributors.
Mayor Bloomberg.
That was the biggest vote of
Mayor
bullshit
Bloomberg,
I've
I'll
ever
let you
heard.
respond to that. Do you think Senator Sanders'
How
economy
many
would be better for
thousands are
America than
homeless in
President
I
Trump?
think that Donald
because
Trump thinks it would be better if he's
of
president.
liberal
I do not
policy.
think so. Vladimir Putin thinks that Donald Trump should be president of the United States, and that's why Russia is helping you get elected, so you'll lose to him.
Russia. I don't know where Russia is on a map. Mini Mike.
Let me tell Mr. Putin, okay, I'm not a good friend of President Xi of China. I think President Xi is an authoritarian leader. And let me tell Mr. Putin, who interfered in the 2016 election, try to bring Americans against Americans. Hey, Mr. Putin, if I'm president of the United States, trust me, you're not going to interfere in any more American elections.
Senator Warren?
We know what Russia wants is chaos.
So look, the way I see this is that Bernie is winning right now because the Democratic Party is a progressive party, and progressive ideas are popular ideas, even if there are a lot of people on this stage who don't want to say so. But Bernie and I agree on a lot of things, but I think I would make a better president than Bernie. And the reason for that is that getting a progressive agenda enacted is going to be really hard, and it's going to take someone who digs into the details to make it happen. Bernie and I both wanted to help rein in Wall Street. In 2008, we both got our chance, but I dug in, I fought the big banks, I built the coalitions, and I won. Bernie and I both want to see universal health care, but Bernie's plan doesn't explain how to get there, doesn't show how we're going to get enough allies into it, and doesn't show enough about how we're going to pay for it. I dug in, I did the work, and then Bernie's team trashed me for it. We need a president who is going to dig in, do the hard work, and actually get it done. Progressives have got one shot, and we need to spend it with a leader who will get something done.
You're not going to get anything done because none of it can beat Trump.
Why would the Russians want to be working on behalf of Bernie Sanders?
I'll tell you what the Russians want. They don't have a political party. They want chaos, and chaos is what is coming our way.
When did Russia become our enemy?
You think the last 4 years has been chaotic, divisive, toxic, exhausting? Imagine spending the better part of 2020 with Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump. Think about what that will be like for this country. And meanwhile, folks at home from South Carolina to South Bend are trying to figure out what any of this means for us. Because it's right that there is a progressive majority, an American majority, that wants to see real change, wants to see wages go up and go up faster than the cost of health and saving for retirement. But also, there's the majority of the American people who I think right now just want to be able to turn on the TV, see their president, and actually feel their blood pressure go down a little bit instead of up through the roof. We have an opportunity to set a different tone.
Bernie Sanders' analysis is right. The difference is I don't like his solutions. I don't believe that a government takeover of large parts of the economy makes any sense for working people or for families. I think that what we need to do is to present an alternative that includes a vibrant, competitive private sector.
That was my
But we
call.
all know
Shut up.
unchecked capitalism has failed. The answer is not for the government to take over the private sector.
Bullshit.
The answer is for us to
Unchecked
break
capitalism
the
is giving
corporate stranglehold on
us
our
jobs
government
right
and
now.
have the government work for the people again.
Vice
Give
President
us
Biden.
jobs and
Well, let me
lowest
just finish because
unemployment
we need to
history.
have an alternative to Donald Trump. I'm talking about doubling the minimum wage, cutting taxes by 10% for everybody who makes less than $250,000, and creating over 4.5 million good-paying union jobs. Donald Trump stinks. He's incompetent as a steward of the American economy. We have to show that we can create a growing, prosperous economy that works for American working people.
Mr. Steyer, thank you.
The
Your time's up.
economy,
Vice President
it's a
Biden.
blue-collar economy, you
Talk about
dumbasses.
Let's talk about being progressive.
Oh, here's creepy Uncle
More
Joe.
conditions here is Mother Emanuel Church. 9 people shot dead by a white supremacist. Bernie voted 5 times against the Brady bill and wanted a waiting period. No, let me finish. And waited a waiting period of 12 hours. I'm not saying he's responsible for the 9 deaths, but that man would not have been able to get that weapon with the waiting period had been what I suggest until you are cleared. In addition to that, being progressive, he thought Barack Obama, he wanted a primary. He said we should primary Barack Obama. Someone should. And in fact, the president was weak, and our administration was, in fact, not up to it. Look, folks, let's talk about progressive. Progressive is getting things done, and that's what we got done. We got a lot done.
What did you get done? You didn't name
Senator
one
Sanders,
thing.
your response?
You know, Pete mentioned, I'm hearing my name mentioned a little bit tonight. I wonder why. And maybe, Pete mentions what the American people want. I will tell you, Pete, what the American people want. Joe, what the American people want. They don't want candidates to be running to billionaires for huge amounts of funding.
All right, let's clear this up once and for all.
Pete has gotten funding
you've got people
from
believing
over
something that
50
is false.
billionaires.
This
Joe,
needs
I
to be
think, has
cleared.
gotten a little bit more. What the
All right.
American people want, by the way, and a lot of the issues we'll be discussing tonight are issues I raised 4 years ago. Raising the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour, making public colleges and universities tuition free, and finally doing what every other major country on earth does, guaranteeing health care to all people as a human right, to a Medicare for all single-payer system.
I can't allow this to stand because it's just not true. Senator Sanders has got people believing
Single
something
payer
that is
means
untrue
every single
about my
person
campaign.
get in line.
The idea that most of my
And
campaign
wait
is
your
funded by
turn.
billionaires.
Say that, Pete.
50 people. All right. In Charleston alone, just in Charleston, over 2,000 people have contributed to my campaign. That means the dollars that have come to my campaign just from Charleston
Who
is more
cares?
than the dollars that have come from the 50 people that you mentioned. Grassroots contributions are the lifeblood of my campaign. In fact, I shouldn't miss the opportunity. If you're watching right now and you support my campaign,
Oh my goodness! Now
go
he's
to
on TV
PeteForAmerica.com
begging for dollars.
and chip in.
Eat
And if you're
Buttigieg
watching
for
right now
dollars.
and you're a billionaire, I will raise your taxes. But if you'd like to defeat Donald Trump, please go to PeteForAmerica.com and donate the legal maximum of $2,800.
All right, all right.
Bernie and Elizabeth
Vice
have their
President Biden,
hands
I
up
want
like
to
school
I want to
kids.
bring us to another topic. We're in South Carolina. It's the first primary with a significant Black voting population. Your numbers appear to be slipping with Black voters. And I'm wondering if you could respond about why that is happening to you at this particular time.
Well, first of all, the latest poll I saw, my numbers, I'm still 15 points ahead. the latest poll.
Yes, you're correct.
You're full of shit.
But
You're
Senator
about 2
Sanders
points
is in
ahead.
striking distance of you. You are within the margin of error in this state.
Well, it depends which poll. Look, I've
Depends on
earned the
which
vote.
poll.
I've worked like the devil to earn the vote of the African American community, not just here, but across the country.
What'd
I've
you
been
do?
coming here for years and years, creating jobs here, making sure that the port, for example, that employs 1 in 11 people, we put $500 million in our administration just into this county. We've created jobs for people. The people know me. My entire career has been wrapped up in dealing with civil rights and civil liberties. I don't expect anything. I plan to
What
earn
did you
the
do
vote.
for
I'm
civil
here
rights
to
in your
ask.
career?
I'm here to
Name one thing.
folks. I intend to win South Carolina, and I will win the African American vote here in South Carolina.
Mr. Biden, will you continue if you do not win South Carolina? You have said that South Carolina will determine the outcome of this presidential race. If you don't win South Carolina, will you continue in this
I
race?
will win South Carolina.
All right, sir. Mayor Bloomberg, I'd like to bring you in this conversation. I want to ask you about a question that impacts the Black and brown community. You've apologized for stop and frisk repeatedly. What exactly are you apologizing for?
We let it get out of control. And when I realized that, I cut it back by 95%. And I've apologized and asked for forgiveness. I've met with Black leaders to try to get an understanding of how I can better position myself and what I should have done and what I should do next time. But let me tell you, I have been working very hard. We've improved the school system for Black and brown students in New York City. We've increased the jobs that are available to them. We've increased the housing that's available to them.
But what more
we have
can you do
programs
about
like
this issue, Mr. Mayor, to put people's fears and skepticism to rest?
I think
it continues to follow you.
No, well, that's because it's in their interest to promote that. But if you talk to the people in New York City, I have over 100 Black elected officials that have endorsed me. A lot of them are in the audience tonight. And I've earned the respect of people in New York City. I was the mayor of the largest, most populous city in the United States for 12 years. And people will tell you it's a lot better city today. It is safer for everybody. The school system is better. The budget's under control. We've done the things that people need in New York City for all ethnicities.
Mayor Buttigieg? Mayor to mayor, you've certainly had your issues with the Black community as well. Do you think the New York City's implementation of stop and frisk was racist?
Yes, in effect it was, because it was about profiling people based on their race. And the mayor even said that they disproportionately stopped white people too often and minorities too little. And I'm not here to score points. I come at this with a great deal of humility because we have had a lot of issues, especially when it comes to racial justice and policing in my own community. And I come to this with some humility because I'm conscious of the fact that there's 7 white people on this stage talking about racial justice. None of us.
Yeah, it's a real diverse group.
None of us have the experience, the lived experience of, for example, walking down the street or in a mall and feeling eyes on us, regarding us as dangerous without knowing the first thing about us just because of the color of our skin. None of us have the experience that Black women have had that drives that maternal mortality gap that we are all rightly horrified by, of going into a doctor and being less likely to have your description of being in pain believed because of your race. Since we don't have the experience, the next best thing we can do is actually listen to those who do.
I know, wait a second. I know that if I were Black, my success would have been a lot harder to achieve. And I know a lot of Black people that if they were white, it would have been a lot easier for them. That's just a fact, and we've got to do something about it than rather just demagogue about it.
Senator Klobuchar, was the way that the mayor implemented stop and frisk racist?
Yes, and I think that what we need to do, instead of just reviewing everything from the past, is talk about where we're going to go forward. Martin Luther King once said that we are all tied in a single garment of destiny, and that what affects one of us directly affects all of us indirectly. So when there is racism in the criminal justice system, then we need to fix it. And to me, that means sentencing reform like the First Step Act and extending that to the states with the Second Step Act. It means equal opportunity, because if we don't pass Representative Clyburn something about childcare, about making sure we increase the minimum wage, and then finally voting. While we are all sitting here debating, Wisconsin has kicked hundreds of thousands of people off of their voting rolls.
Yeah,
Georgia kicked 100,000 off. As president, I will get voting rights to be a reality for everyone.
Senator Warren, I'm coming to you. I want to direct this question to you because Mayor Bloomberg has said he got in this race late because he doesn't believe that any of you on stage can beat Donald Trump.
Neither can he.
You said Mayor Bloomberg is not the safest candidate. He is the riskiest candidate. What did you mean by that?
I mean that Mayor Bloomberg, let's think of it this way. We're here in Charleston, and you know who's going to be in Charleston later this week is Donald Trump. He's going to be here to raise money for his buddy, Senator Lindsey Graham. Who funded Lindsey Graham's campaign for re-election last time? It was Mayor Bloomberg. And that's not the only right-wing senator that Mayor Bloomberg has funded. In 2016, he dumped $12 million into the Pennsylvania Senate race to help reelect an anti-choice right-wing Republican senator. And I just want to say, the woman challenger was terrific. She lost by a single point. In 2012, he scooped in to try to defend another Republican senator against a woman challenger. That was me.
Bipartisan.
It didn't work, but he tried hard.
Oh, so there's a personal grudge against Michael Bloomberg.
I don't care how much money Mayor Bloomberg has. The core of the Democratic Party will never trust him. He has not earned their trust. I will. And the fact that he cannot earn the trust of the core of the Democratic Party means he is the riskiest candidate standing on this stage.
All right, Senator Warren, thank you. Mayor Bloomberg, would you like to respond? Mayor Bloomberg.
I have been training for this job since I stepped on the pile that was still smoldering on 9/11.
Oh, horse
I know what
shit.
to do. I've shown I know how to run a country. Run the city, which is almost the same size as bigger than most countries in the world. I'm the one choice that makes some sense. I have the experience, I have the resources, and I have the record. And all of the sideshows that the senator wants to bring up have nothing to do with that. When people hired me to run New York City 3 times in an overwhelmingly Democratic progressive city, they elected me again and again.
Oh yeah,
Mr. Vice President,
I was mentioned in this. I'd like to respond.
Go ahead, Senator.
He called me out by name and referred to what I talk about as a sideshow. You know, this is personal for me. When I was 21 years old, I got my first job as a special education teacher. I loved that job. And by the end of the first year, I was visibly pregnant.
This has already been proven a lie, Elizabeth.
And gave my job to someone else. Pregnancy discrimination, you bet.
But
I was 21 years old. I didn't have a union to protect me, and I didn't have any federal law on my side. So I packed up my stuff and I went home.
There are federal laws now. At least
I didn't have a boss who said to me, "Kill it." The way that Mayor Bloomberg alleged to have said to one of his pregnant employees. People want a chance.
Your boss didn't tell you to kill your baby.
People want a chance to hear from the women who.
I never said that.
I want to allow the mayor.
For the record, if she was a teacher in New York City, she would never have had that problem. We treated our teachers the right way, and the unions will tell you exactly that.
Well, Mayor Bloomberg, Senator Warren has raised.
Let us have the women have an opportunity to speak. The Bloomberg corporations and Mayor Bloomberg himself have been accused of discrimination. They are bound by non-disclosures so that they cannot speak. If he says there is nothing to hide here, then sign a blanket release and let those women speak out so that they can tell their stories the way I can tell my story without having.
Thank you.
It's not about stories, it's about how you can run a country.
We have a number of issues discussed tonight, but I want to give the mayor an opportunity to respond because she has raised concerns about women in your workplace. At the last debate, you said some of your female employees might not have liked some of your jokes. Did these women take your jokes wrong, or were you wrong to make the jokes?
Probably wrong to make the jokes. I don't remember what they were, so I assume if it bothered them, I was wrong, and I apologize. I'm sorry for that. But what happened here is we went back 40 years and we could only find 3 cases where women said they were uncomfortable. Nobody accused me of doing anything other than just making a comment or two. And what the senator did suggest was that we release these women from the non-disclosure agreement. I did that 2 days later, and my company has said we will not use non-disclosure agreements ever again. The senator has got it. And I don't know what else she wants us to do.
Oh, I'll be
We're
clear.
following exactly what she asked to
I'll tell
do.
you exactly
And the
what I
trouble
want.
is, with this senator, enough. And thank you. We've probably made the world better because of it. And by my company renouncing using these, we probably changed, hopefully, the corporate landscape all across America.
No, if you get nominated, we'll be relitigating this all year.
Do what I asked.
Senator Warren, that is a very serious charge that you leveled at the mayor.
Yes.
You told a woman to get an abortion. What evidence do you have of that?
Her own words.
And Mayor Bloomberg, could you respond to this?
Never said it. Period. End of story.
Look.
Categorically, never said it. When I was accused of doing it, we couldn't figure out what she was talking about. But right now, I'm sorry if she heard what she thought she heard or whatever happened. I didn't take any pleasure in that. And we've just got to go on, but I never said it. Come on.
What I asked the mayor to do is to do a release of all people who have
We are
discrimination
doing that, Senator.
claims. Look, who have
We want to get to
discrimination.
we want to get to the issue. We want to get to the issue of electability and the ideological difference within the Democratic Party. Senator Sanders, the cost of your agenda.
All right, old Bernie.
Yesterday, you released information about how you will pay for your major proposals, but not all of your details are clear. You proposed more than $50 trillion in new spending.
Man,
You said Medicare for all will cost $30 trillion. But you can only explain how you'll pay for just about half of that. Can you do the math for the rest of us?
How many hours do you have?
2.
The answer
that's
is
the problem.
No, it's not the problem. All right, let's talk about Medicare for all. I'm sure you're familiar with a new study that just came out of Yale University, published in Lancet magazine, one of the prestigious medical journals in the world. You know what it said? Medicare for all will lower healthcare costs in this country by $450 billion a year and save 68,000 lives of people who otherwise would have died.
How do you
What
know
we need
that?
to do is
How do
to
they
do
know
what
we
every
saved
other major
68,000
country on
lives?
earth does, guarantee health care to all people, not have thousands of separate insurance plans, which are costing us some $500 billion a year to administer. Our plan, we have laid out options all over the place. One of the options is a 7.5% payroll tax on employers, which will save them substantial sums of money.
Bernie, let me respond to this. No, the math does not add up. In fact, just on 60 Minutes this weekend, he said he wasn't going to rattle through the nickels and the dimes. Well, let me tell you how many nickels and dimes we're talking about. Nearly $60 trillion. Do you know how much that is for all of his programs? That is 3 times the American economy, not the federal government, the entire American economy. The Medicare for All plan alone clearly says that it'll kick 149 million Americans off their current health insurance in 4 years. That is true. As one prominent Democrat once said, we should pay attention to where the voters of this country are, Bernie. That prominent Democrat was Barack Obama a few months ago. And I think that's what we should do. They are not with you on spending nearly $60 trillion. What I think we should do is make things more affordable, nonprofit public option, make sure we're paying for long-term care better, done together, and do something for the people of America instead of a bunch of broken promises that sound good on bumper stickers.
Mr. Steyer,
I think we're talking
we'll
about
get to you,
that.
Mr. Sanders.
Let's talk about
Mr.
it.
Steyer.
Look, first of all, I think she was talking about my plan, not yours.
I think we were talking about math, and it doesn't take 2 hours to do the math. Because let's talk about what it adds up to. Let's talk about math indeed. Okay, so here's the math. No, here's the math.
Excuse me, can I respond?
Doing nothing is what will happen.
Senator Sanders, you're allowed.
Sanders and
Senator
Booth.
Sanders.
Moderate.
Senator Sanders.
Moderator, is it my turn?
Cut the
Senator
mics
Sanders,
off.
you have been name checked. You are allowed to respond.
Okay. What the Health and Human Services have said in analyzing healthcare costs, what Yale,
So Steiner
recent Yale
didn't
study
need to say
has said,
shit.
is that 10 times more for the same exact prescription drugs. What every study out there, Medicare for all will save money. Ours will cost about 45 billion, not 60 trillion.
No, I was talking, Bernie, I was talking about,
We would like,
Senator Sanders,
we would like to bring Mr. Steyer in on this conversation. Mr. Steyer, please.
I was talking about all your programs.
Excuse me, Amy. This conversation shows a huge risk for the Democratic Party. We are looking at a party that has decided that we're either going to support someone who's a day that I got into this race because I wanted to fight for economic justice, for racial justice, and to make sure we had climate justice for the American people. And I am scared.
Climate justice. Oh
If
my
we cannot
gosh.
pull this party together, if we go to one of those extremes, we take a terrible risk of re-electing Donald Trump.
Thank you, Mr. Steyer.
And that is something
The
I still have
American
some time. And
people
let
are
me just
going
say
to
this.
re-elect
That
Donald
is a
Trump,
risk that will
not
hurt
you, not
the
the
American
Russians.
people in a way that none of us on this stage.
Let's keep this topic going, Mayor Pete.
So let's do some math. Senator Sanders at one point said it was going to be 40 trillion, then it was 30, then it was 17. It's an incredible shrinking price tag. At some point has said it is unknowable to even see what the price tag would be. Now there are new numbers going. I'll tell you exactly what it adds up to. It adds up to 4 more years of Donald Trump, Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House, and the inability to get the Senate into Democratic hands. The time has come for us to stop acting like the presidency is the only office that matters. Not only is this a way to get Donald Trump reelected, we got a House to worry about. We got a Senate to worry about. And this is really up the House in Democratic hands. You might want to check with the people who actually turned the House blue. 40 Democrats who are not running on your platform. They are running away from your platform as fast as they possibly can. I want to send those Democrats back to the United States House. Let's listen to them when they say that they don't want to be out there defending Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mayor.
Whoa.
Vice President Biden, please.
I guess the only way you do this is jump in and speak twice as long as you should. Here's the deal. Look, a guy is a friend of mine down there named Fritz Hollins. He passed away. He said, "You want to know what a man in a room will do? Look what they've done. Look what they've done." You talk about a trend on the end of this platform. He, in fact, bought a system that was a private prison system after he knew that, in fact, what happened was they hogtied young men in prison here in this state. They, in fact, made sure that in Georgia, they did not have health care for the people who were being held. They, in fact, went on and he said, after he knew that, he bought it. And then he said he was proud of his accomplishment. You talk about what we're talking about with Bernie. Bernie, in fact, hasn't passed much of anything. The fact of the matter is, but I get the answer. Look at what's happening here. Look at what's happening here. We have to win the Senate back. And by the way, I went into all of those races that got 41 new Democrats. The majority of them are supporting me for president.
And Mr. Vice President, I have to allow. Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, you're allowed to respond.
I bought stock in a prison company thinking they do a better job, and I am.
Done that.
In fact, since then, I've worked to end the use of private prisons in my home state, and we've ended it. I've started a bank to support Black ownership of businesses, women ownership of businesses, and Latino owners of businesses, because this financial service industry is prejudiced. I have worked tirelessly on this, and you know I'm right. You wrote the crime bill.
Where we come from, that's called Tommy Come Lately.
There are other people here. Put hundreds of thousands of young Black and Latino men in prison. I have worked for racial justice completely, and that is an absolute unfair statement.
All I know is
Tommy Come Lately.
if we spend the next 4 months tearing our party apart, we're going to watch Donald Trump spend the next 4 years tearing our country apart. So my argument here is that we need to get back to what's happening right now. We have a clear choice of who's going to lead this party. And I am the only one in the New Hampshire debate, when asked if we had a problem with a socialist leading the ticket, that raised my hands. I like Bernie. We came in together to the Senate, but I do not think that this is the best person to lead the ticket. And if you want to talk about getting things done and make a comparison, according to Vanderbilt University in Tennessee, last Congress in the U.S. Senate on 15 metrics. Bernie and Elizabeth were in the bottom half. It matters. It matters if you can actually get things done. It is not just who talks the best, who actually gets things done. And especially with the African American community, there have been a lot of broken promises. And I think having someone that keeps their promises and follows through and is going to get things done for these people matters. And that's why I asked
Mayor Bloomberg, please.
Let's just go on the record. They talked about 40 Democrats. 21 of those were people that I spent $100 million to help elect. All of the new put Nancy Pelosi in charge and gave the Congress the ability to control this president. I got them. Number two, when you talk about money, let's put this in perspective. The federal budget is $4.5 trillion a year. We get $3.5 trillion in revenue. We lose $1 trillion a year. That's why the federal budget deficit is right now, the debt is $20 trillion going up to 21. We just cannot afford some of the stuff people talk about. But if you let me finish. If you keep on going, we will elect to Donald Trump.
So will
and
you.
Donald Trump and the House and the Senate and some of the state houses will all go red, and then between gerrymandering and appointing judges for the next 20 or 30 years, we're going to live with this catastrophe.
Thank you. I will allow Senator
20 or 30
Sanders
years
a quick
of
response.
conservative judges.
Senator Sanders, a quick response, and then
Thank you very much. Mayor Bloomberg has a solid and strong and enthusiastic base of support. Problem is, they're all billionaires. Now, on the other hand, of the last 50 polls that have been done nationally, Mr. Bloomberg, I beat Trump 47 of those 50 times. If you look at battleground states like Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, polling just
the polls aren't the election.
I beat Trump. And if you want to beat Trump, what you're going to need is an unprecedented grassroots movement of Black and white and Latino, Native American and Asian people who are standing.
Anybody in this room imagine moderate Republicans going over and voting for him? And you have to do that or you can't win.
No,
thank you, Senator Warren.
That is the problem. And that is that a progressive agenda is popular, Mayor Bloomberg, and for everyone on this stage. We talk about how to build a future. That's what matters. I talk to people in selfie lines every day who tell me about the importance of getting real help on health care. It's why I also have a way to pay for health care that doesn't raise taxes on middle-class families. But it's so much more than that. As Democrats, we need to speak to the future we can build together. We need to speak of the prosperity we can build together. How about a wealth tax in America? Because with a 2-cent tax on just the top 1/10 of 1%, or some child care for every one of our babies to really level the playing field. Put $50 billion into historically Black colleges and universities. And start closing the racial wealth gap by canceling student loan debt for 43 million Americans. We need to talk about our aspirations, our hopes. This is a moment.
Only on CBS.
Okay, so let's spend a lot of time attacking each other and trying to figure out who can bring or who can beat Donald Trump, which I don't think any of them can. So it's insanity at its finest in this Democrat debate. They're just yelling over each other, as you can hear, talking beyond their limits. The moderators are doing nothing. to stop that. There needs to be a red or yellow light, a red light, and a bell that goes off when your time to talk is over. And they need to cut your microphone when you're talking beyond your limit. Commercial break. So right now it's been an attack on Sanders for the most part. And Russia is trying to help him win the Democrat nomination so that Trump can then win. My questions that I sent in at hashtag Dem debate were, if the economy is strong, if unemployment's at its lowest, if our enemies are behaving themselves, which Russia is behaving better than it did under Barack Obama, ISIS is no longer a problem. North Korea is no longer firing missiles at Japan. And so our enemies are behaving. The proof that our economy is strong is out there. Forget this minimum wage crap. Minimum wage jobs are a starter job, so you then can learn a skill or get some experience and move on to a better job. But my question is, what are y'all complaining about? If the economy is strong and our enemies aren't acting a fool. I forget what my other question to them was. But you were supposed to be sending questions at hashtag Dem debate. So far, I haven't heard them name any names of people. Hashtag. And Elizabeth Warren tried to bring up historically black colleges. Donald Trump's given more money to historically black colleges than any president in history. They're talking about prison reform. Donald Trump already did that. He's been pardoning people, getting people's sentences reduced. African American people at that. Allege. And yeah, universal health care for all. Those other countries that do that are so much smaller than the United States that it's ridiculous. They don't have the millions of people, as many millions of people as we do. All right, I think they're starting again.
I'm Gail King with Norah O'Donnell. Joining us now in the question here in Charleston, South Carolina, our CBS News colleagues, the A-Team, Bill Whitaker of 60 Minutes, Chief Washington Correspondent, that's Major Garrett, and Margaret Brennan, moderator of Face the Nation. We're going to begin with you, Vice President Biden, for this part. Just across the street, as you mentioned at the top of the debate, is a theater where 9 people were shot and killed inside the Mother Emanuel Church. We all remember that day back. Able to pass a major gun legislation in a quarter of a century. And just think about this. In those 25 years, we've had Columbine, Newtown, Parkland.
Never got it done nationally. I beat the NRA twice. I got assault weapons banned. I got magazines that could not hold more than 10 rounds in them. I got them eliminated. Except we had a thing in Florida, and it was not reauthorized. In addition to that, I passed the Brady bill with waiting periods. I led that fight. But my friend to my right and others have, in fact, also given to the gun manufacturers absolute immunity. Imagine if I stood here and said we give immunity to drug companies, we give immunity to tobacco companies. That has caused carnage on our streets. 150 million people have been killed since 2007 when Bernie voted to exempt the gun manufacturers from liability. More than all the wars,
manufacturer be liable,
including Vietnam, from that point on. Tell you, if I'm elected and I'm coming for you and gun manufacturers, I'm going to take you on and I'm going to beat you. I'm the only one who's done it.
Yes,
That's why we've
about
had such
being
pain in
able to
Washington.
dig in and talk about what really it's going to take to get something done. I've been
How
in
are
the
you gonna
Senate.
stop the
When I
illegal
see
gun trade?
gun
That's
safety
the real
legislation
problem.
introduced,
Illegal
get a
guns on
majority,
the streets.
and then doesn't pass
is the
because of the
problem.
filibuster. Understand this, the filibuster is giving a veto to the gun industry. It gives a veto to the oil industry. It's going to give a veto on immigration, to dig in and say that if Mitch McConnell is going to do to the next Democratic president what he did to President Obama, and that is
There ain't
try
gonna
to
be a
block
next
every
Democratic
single thing
president.
he does, that we are willing to roll back the filibuster, go with a majority vote, and do what needs to be done for the American
Okay,
people.
Senator,
but
we're going to
One
stay on
vote
this
to
topic
change
and
that.
allow
And
Senator.
defeat Mitch McConnell.
Understand this. Many people on this stage do not support rolling
Time,
back
Senator.
the filibuster.
Thank you.
Until we're ready to
Senator.
do that, we can't.
Senator,
make
I want to
real
allow
change.
Senator Sanders to
Go.
respond to the insurance industry. You've taken on pharmaceutical companies and you've taken on big tech. Why did you vote repeatedly to give gun manufacturers a pass?
You know, Joe has voted for terrible trade agreements. No. Joe voted for the war in Iraq. My point was not to be. I have cast thousands of votes, including bad votes. That was, I likely lost a race for the one seat for Congress in Vermont because 30 years ago I supported a ban on assault weapons. 30 years ago. Right now, my view is we need to expand background checks, end the gun show loophole, and do what the American people want, not what the NRA
Okay, but wait a
wants.
second.
Here's
I-
one thing: the
I-
opposition to the
I had-
filibuster is
time out.
not a discretion from a
I
long
think
time
you
ago.
recognize me. Thank you. I have a sixation around this country, Moms to Men Action in every town. We have put background checks. We've got background checks in 20 states. So you can do it. It's Congress that can't seem to do it. And I don't know why we think they're going to do it. The vice president voted for a death bill and supported the NRA. And certainly Senator Sanders has supported the NRA. But we can do this. We just got to stop talking about it.
But the way
We want
we
it
do
both
it,
ways.
the way we do it is having someone leading the ticket from a part of the country that we actually need the votes. So users can't go out and get an AK-47.
I
That
wrote that
bill,
law.
along with, you didn't write that bill. I wrote that
I
bill.
wrote the bill, the Violence Against Women Act, that
Okay,
took
you did that.
out of the hands of people who
Okay,
abused
we'll
their.
have a
well,
fact check look
No,
at this.
let's look at the fact
My
check.
goodness.
The only thing that the boyfriend loophole was not covered. I couldn't get that covered. You, in fact, when you were when as a senator, tried to get it covered, and Mitch McConnell is holding up on his desk right now, and we're going to lose the Violence Against Women Act.
If I could finish, I have the bill. Anyone can check it out to close the boyfriend loophole. Also, to close the Charleston loophole is another bill that's out there, universal background checks. But let me say how we win this. We've got to win in the middle of the country. And while everyone talks about winning rural areas, suburban areas, I'm the only one up here with the receipts that has actually repeatedly, while being for the assault weapon ban, won in Republican congressional districts over and over again, including Michelle Bachmann's district. So having someone that can lead the ticket, that can bring people safety legislation. I look at these proposals and say, do they hurt my Uncle Dick in the deer stand? They do not. And so coming from a proud hunting state and still being able to pass this legislation
Senator Klobuchar,
is going
thank
to be
you.
the
We
key.
want to allow many people to get in on this topic. Mayor Buttigieg.
I'm definitely on board with the part about sending up somebody from the middle of the country. But I want to come back to this question about the filibuster, because this is not some long ago bad vote that Bernie Sanders took. This is a current bad position that Bernie Sanders holds. And we're in South Carolina. How are we going to deliver a revolution if you won't even support a rule change? We are in the state. We are in the state repeatedly. No less a Senate traditional figure than Harry Reid has called for it to go. It has got to go because otherwise Washington will not deliver. I was in high school when the Columbine shooting happened. And I remember everybody in Washington saying, never again. We'll never let this happen again. And then a second school shooting generation has now been produced. Shame on us if we allow there to be a third.
All right,
And also,
okay,
in
time's
terms
up
of
here,
making the
please.
case, I think it
Time's
wouldn't
up,
be a
sir.
bad idea for somebody to illustrate from the perspective of a veteran why the kinds of weaponry, anything remotely like what I trained on in order to go serve in a war zone, has no business being sold anywhere near an American
All right.
school or church or neighborhood.
All right, Senator Sanders, please.
30 years ago, supported a ban on assault weapons. Mike Bloomberg has started a very good organization, Moms Demand Action. Congratulations. They have credited me with gun sense, as you.
Yes, we did.
Furthermore, it is my view that the time is now, and Joe made this point. Look, at the end of the day, we need to rally the American people. Here is the good news. Because of all these disgusting and horrific mass shootings, the American people now understand that we must be aggressive on gun safety, not be dictated to by the NRA. And I am proud that I have a D- voting record to President.
All right, Mr. Steyer, please.
Look,
Mr. Steyer.
it isn't a question of the American people deciding that we have too much gun violence. Everyone in America
What
knows
about
we have too much gun
Chicago?
violence. The problem we have is that corporations have bought Washington, D.C. The gun manufacturers own the Senate of the United States. So even though more than 90% of Americans want mandatory background checks on every gun purchase, we can't get it through the Senate. So the question you have for every congressperson and senator to change who's Mitch
just put
McConnell and
lobbyists
Lindsey
in
Graham and
charge.
Ted Cruz. But I am also, Senator Sanders is right. We need
Senator
to win a
Sanders.
huge victory across the board.
All right,
Democrats
Mr.
need
Steyer.
to go to the grassroots. I built one of the biggest grassroots organizations in the United States.
Your
The way
time's
to
up,
win at the
sir.
grassroots is tell the truth
time's
and
up, sir.
organize.
Bill
That's what it's
Whitaker.
going to
Mike.
take in 2020.
Your time's up,
Excuse me.
sir. Bill Whitaker.
Let's talk about education. South Carolina's schools score in the bottom half of the national assessment. Black students here consistently. And Mayor Bloomberg, a key element of your response to failing schools in New York City was a dramatic increase in public charter schools. As president, would you pursue that same strategy and seek to expand charter schools nationwide?
I'm not sure they're appropriate every place. I can only tell you in New York, they provided parents with an alternative to send students to them. We had the charter schools are mixed in with the non-charter public schools because our charter schools are public schools as well. They've helped each other. I saw a statistic the other day. When I came into office, 0 New York City schools were in the top 25 of the state. 25 were from New York City. We've cut the gap between the rich and the poor. We've made an enormous difference in all of the options that parents have. I've raised teachers' salaries by 43%. I put an extra $5 billion into our school system. I value education. It is the only ways to solve the poverty problem is to get people a good education. And rather than just talk about it in New York, we actually did it.
Senator Warren?
So this is one thing where a president can make a big difference all by her. My Secretary of Education. My Secretary of Education will be someone who has taught in public school. My Secretary of Education will be someone who believes in public education. And my Secretary of Education will believe that public dollars should stay in public schools. One more thing. My Secretary of Education will believe that it is time to get rid of high stakes testing. We need to support our children. But look, we want to build a future in this country. We build a future by investing. I plan to put $800 billion new federal dollars into our public schools. Education is not free. We must invest in the future of our children.
Senator Sanders.
This campaign, our campaign is about changing American priorities.
Okay. That's all good. But Biggest Loser's about to start and I don't want to miss it. So I'm not going to vote for any of them in the obviously or in the general. Trump's addressed a lot of the things they brought up, like prison reform. He's already addressed what he calls opportunity zones, which has led to lower unemployment for African Americans, Black folks. None of them have addressed the fact that the economy is rolling and every democrat through capitalism. I don't know how Yale, I haven't read the Yale study yet. I found out about it today. I'll look into it. It says that Bernie's plan will save us millions or billions of dollars and save 68,000 lives. I don't understand how they can judge what one payer health system will save 68,000 lives. So that requires some research on my part and yours, but it's really been an attack on one another's credibility and character more than it's been a debate on issues. So I'm a little disappointed. It's been a fiery debate, entertaining, but sway me away from Donald Trump or the Republican Party, which would take a hell and high water. So anyways, that's the end of this live stream. I'll post this video, and good night. God bless, and pray for one another.